Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me for this edition of Austin Prep Presents. I'm Jennifer Hodgson, the Director of Alumni Relations and Giving at Austin Prep. This evening, we are joined by chiropractor Dr. Abbey Denaro from the class of 2005, along with science faculty Dr. Rick Venegas. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
In this one-hour webinar, Dr. Denaro of Denaro Chiropractic will address how families can help combat stress by implementing daily stretching, working on posture habits, and when necessary, checking in with a doctor, such as a chiropractor, to help with designing a specific program that will allow families to work through the difficult times and all the stresses that we have right now. So Dr. Denaro specializes in prenatal and pediatric care, and she was awarded the Leading Physician of the World Award, the top chiropractor in Massachusetts, and has been repeatedly recognized as the #1 chiropractor in North Reading. So before we get started, I'm going to invite both Dr. Denaro and Dr. Venegas to say a little bit about themselves and their backgrounds and their experience. So how about we start with you, Abbey?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. To start off with my experience with Austin and a little snapshot of how Austin was so helpful for me. I love telling this story. I've told it at other opportunities when I've been able to speak at Austin, and I don't know if I should love telling this story, but I do. I actually didn't get into Austin. When I took the entrance exam, I didn't pass. And it was really just thanks to my sister already being a student at Austin, and they gave me a second chance if I, took some summer classes and then passed the entrance exam again. So I thank Austin Prep for giving me a second chance because now look where we are. It's such an honor to be invited back to speak as an alumni of Austin. And to just remember where I was before Austin. I was not a great student. Not that I was a bad student, I just could have cared less about school before Austin. And everyone at Austin Prep was so transformative for me. By the time I graduated, I went to UMass Lowell for my undergrad in exercise physiology. And then from there, spent another 4 years going to chiropractic school out in California. And really like being in college and seeing all my peers struggling with board exams and final exams and everything. And I just remember going through all those years of post-grad school, just feeling like, I got this. Like Austin was probably the hardest schooling for me, and it totally prepared me for everything moving forward. So beyond grateful for my experience at Austin, and here we are now. So it's really cool to welcome people into my office through Zoom and share some of my experience. And the reason why I'm a chiropractor, there were a lot of like stepping stones throughout my life that brought me here. One was just my own personal experience with chiropractic. It helped me. I had TMJ, so jaw problems, when I was growing up, and spent years going to different dentists and nothing helped, and finally went to a chiropractor. And in 2 weeks, just 2 weeks, all my jaw pain was gone. My headaches were gone. I could eat anything I wanted. So that was a miracle for me. And then obviously being in high school, and thank you to Dr. Venegas, took his anatomy class, and it just like blew my mind. I had already started thinking like maybe I'll go into the health field, and then taking his class, not only was it a great class, but he was just the coolest teacher. So definitely was it for me for deciding to go in the direction that I went in and never look back.
And Doc?
So this is being recorded so my kids can hear the cool teacher thing, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Abby. I'm Rick Venegas. I've been teaching. This is my 25th year at Austin Prep. I've taught pretty much any science class you can think of except physics. Sadly, I don't teach anatomy and physiology anymore, Abby, but I've loved teaching it. I love the students. You can see the quality of students we have, and such a well-spoken young lady and a doctor, and just the recognition she gets. And Abby, you could have floored me with what you said, because that is not the student I saw in anatomy. You were smart, you were industrious, you were engaged. I mean, just everything about that class, I just remember so clearly about, that group is just, really being engaged and really wanting to learn more. So maybe that's where, the interest comes in from, but it's such a treat for me to see someone come back who was so interested in something and applied it into their life, and to become so successful as you are. So super, super honored to be able to do this with you. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Excellent. So before we get started, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. So I invite all of our guests to use the Q&A feature to ask any questions throughout the program. We're going to do our best to answer all of the questions by the end of the program. So at this time, I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Denaro and Dr. Venegas, and we'll begin our presentation.
Well, thank you. So the title of this presentation is about stress with posture and stretching. It probably goes without saying that posture and stretching are things that are kind of basics of chiropractic, throughout, chiropractic being a profession. Posture and stretching have been really implemental. It's the stress part that's a little bit new, right? So I guess where I want to start with this conversation is digging a little bit deeper into stress and how our bodies react to it. We're all probably pretty familiar with the term fight or flight. It is a natural, just innate stress response that we have. We're born with it. Oftentimes we're born in a fight or flight state because it can be stressful being born. But it's okay. Like, we're made to have this stress response, and it's supposed to be an acute response, meaning lasting just a short amount of time, right? We usually think about fight or flight with like a lion chasing us as like cavemen. And all animals are made to have this fight or flight response, and it's all made to be acute, short-lived, right? You're being chased by a lion, probably not for miles and miles on end, because either the lion is going to give up or you're going to give up, right? Like, no animal is made to just have that prolonged amount of stress for a long time. And unfortunately, this is kind of where we are now, especially with this pandemic. Just seeing the levels and the types of stress with this pandemic has been really eye-opening, and to be able to be there for people has been wonderful, but it's been really interesting watching people's just mental states change, but also their physical bodies change pre-pandemic versus now in the pandemic. A lot of my patients are under maintenance care, and they have been under care before pandemic and now during it. And so to see that change has been really interesting. A big part of what I do, or how I assess people rather, is assessing the tone of the body, right? So people will lay down on the table and I put my hands on them, and we can feel tone, right? Tone meaning like the tension in the overall body. When people are relaxed, you can feel it. You can feel like just sort of a fluidness, like the muscles are just kind of mushy, like everything's just hanging out. Feeling the amount of stress that their bodies are holding on to is really crazy. And it's unfortunate to witness this, but I also feel really blessed that this is what I do, and I get to be there for people, to be a tool and a resource for them, in a natural way too, which is awesome. Other things that I've noticed with people is like we tend to have these certain patterns that our bodies will hold on to just due to like posture and repetitive stress type things. So typically, maybe pre-pandemic, I've seen people hold on to this certain pattern in their body, like we're doing similar adjustments, or we're always stretching the same muscles. And then post-pandemic, now seeing this totally different pattern that's unique now for each individual person, as their bodies are just kind of like adapting to this new chronic stress that they're in. So those are some things that I've noticed. So we talk a lot about fight or flight, like a lot of people are familiar with that term, but that's just one part of our nervous system. We have another part of the nervous system, which is the exact opposite of it, but is just as equally important, and that's our rest and digest nervous system. Ideally, we should have a balance, right? We should have a level of fight or flight that comes out, but then when we're not in fight or flight, our rest and digest should take over. Like I said before, our fight or flight is meant only for acute time frames, like quick bursts of like, gotta survive and then move on. So that should be just really at the minimum is our fight or flight, and really what should be heightened is our rest and digest. And that's a big part of actually what chiropractors do. Yes, we're working on joints and we're working on muscles, and we're stretching and doing adjustments. But ultimately what we're affecting is the nervous system. So we're helping to just balance those two systems, and really allow the body to get more into that rest and digest mode, so that healing can happen. A couple of things that I wanted to get into, just because it may kind of ring a bell with people, are a couple of areas in the body that really hold on to emotional stress. So there are, when I think about it, there's, in my opinion, two main areas that really hold on to a lot of stress. And the first one you can probably feel. So it's these muscles at the base of your neck, above the shoulder blades, this upper back area. If you push, you'll probably feel some tender spots. You'll probably feel some like rock hard knots. And it's usually the place where people know they hold tension. And everybody holds tension there. It's not just unique to you. Everybody does, and there's a reason for it. And it's fight or flight. So when we're in this fight or flight mode, our body is building up energy. It's building up energy so we can, use our arms to either throw a punch, or we can swing our arms to run. And that energy is also going to our core, but we definitely feel it up here mostly. What happens now in our day and age is we have this stress, our body goes into fight or flight, and our bodies want to expend that energy, but what do? You're talking on the phone with someone who's stressing you out, or you're sitting in the car in traffic and you can't move, or you're on a Zoom call and you can't show any expression because you're on a recording and you can't move around, you're just stuck there, right? So your body wants to be really dynamic and just like let this energy go, but you're stuck and you're so static, and the body is using that energy though. So it ends up still putting that tension into these muscles so that you can start to move. And if you don't use them, if you don't use that energy, it's going to form as knots and tension and build up inflammation. And then it's going to just like creep up into your neck and cause headaches, or go down and cause low back pain. So that is one area of big emotional tension. The other one is a little less noticeable just because it's hard to feel these muscles. These are the hip flexors. So hip flexors are the muscles, if you think about like the connection point between the top of your thigh and your core, that's where your hip flexors lie. So there's one muscle in particular called the psoas muscle, begins with a P, it's PSOAS. And it's for me really fascinating with why this is an emotional muscle, just the way the body is wired to work. Again, when you're stressed, you're in that fight or flight mode. There's a couple reasons why those hip flexors will start to contract and tighten up. One is because if you need to fight, like if you've ever done any karate or any type of martial arts, fighting stance is like you lower yourself, right? You kind of like, you get into a lunge stance and you lower, you get closer to the ground. Your body is actually doing that for you. When it tightens those hip flexors, is actually trying to make you a little bit lower. You might not feel it and you might not see it in your posture at that moment, but that's actually what it's doing. So it's helping you just kind of get a little bit lower to the ground so you can fight. And then the other thing that it's doing is also when we're stressed, if we're not fighting and we're not fleeing, our next response is we just want to go into fetal position. And so that's what those hip flexors are also doing. So the movement of the hip flexor is exactly that. It's crouching you down. So it's bringing your trunk closer to your legs, which is basically fetal position. So it's actually helping you get into like a comfort state. And again, if you're not relaxing your body or you're not expending that energy, all these muscles that we're talking about, they're going to stay in that contracted state until you start to stretch them and open things up and move. So movement and posture and stretching and chiropractic and just all these other movement therapies, these passive therapies that you can do and seek out are really, really helpful for getting your body out of that fight or flight, really heightening that rest and digest. Not only will it make your aches and pains feel better, but it's just going to help your whole body just allow itself to relax so it can really function better. Because when you're stressed, your body is not functioning well. It's just, its goal is survive and get through the day and maybe sleep a little bit, maybe eat enough food and start all over again. So we have to get out of that fight or flight so our bodies can just kind of coast a little bit better and function a whole lot better as well. So I went through some sciencey stuff. I didn't know if Doc had any inputs or question answer things.
No, but I thought you did a great job explaining how the tension in your neck goes from that, that fight or flight response, and chronic, like you said, it's supposed to be something quick. And sometimes your day is just stress after stress after stress. And, you get that chronic and your body's not built for that. Like you said, I thought you did a great job explaining all that. Yeah. I didn't know the thing about the psoas muscle, about the stress for that. That's pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't it? Yeah.
It does sound like, though, if you're in traffic and stressed out, it sounds like it's better to give into your road rage than just sit there. But I know that's probably not the right thing to do. But
I don't know if we can give that advice, but I mean, maybe if you can like safely pull over and like just go through some stretches or like take a deep breath, that might be a good idea.
Yeah.
Probably not the road rage.
No. But you'd release all that energy pretty quick.
Yes, you would. Yep. Cool. Okay. So from here, I'll go over some things that you can do when you're under stress and want to alleviate some of that stress to help prevent all the like mental and physical issues that can come up. There's 3 things that we'll go over. And the first one really is like step 1 for the other 2 steps. So we're going to start with shoulder blades. I do have my skeleton in here. I don't know if it's really easily visible, but basically you have your shoulder blades and they have range of motions. So we're going to go over those ranges of motion. They shrug up, they drop down, they roll forward, and then they pinch back like military position. So there's 4 ranges of motion. Most of the time, because we're stressed and because these muscles get really tight, these end up being like this. So they get shrugged up, and then we're in front of the computer all day. So then they get rolled forward. So the first step is really thinking about letting your shoulder blades drop. Now, this is a hard concept because you're not going to feel a big movement when you drop those shoulder blades. It's not like they don't drop down very far. So it's kind of more of a mental concept, which can also be sort of just meditative, just thinking about those shoulder blades. If you can see, the shoulder blades do create a joint with your ribs. So they lie right on top of the rib cage. So if you can think about we have so many muscles that attach the shoulder blades to the ribs and to the spine and to the shoulder. if you can kind of mentally think about those muscles just sort of melting away, and so that your shoulder blades are just kind of hanging, just being gently suspended with no muscular tension holding them in one position. What some people will say is think about your shoulder blades just kind of falling into your back pockets. So it's not a big movement, like I said, but when you can think about it and let them kind of just fall down your body, I can feel anyways, you can feel just this looseness, like this relaxation, and it kind of just goes through your whole body. Even though it's just your shoulder blades that you're thinking about, it can really impact the rest of your body. So that is kind of my step one. And whenever you're feeling overly stressed, like that's just a really good thing, that like a quick thing that you can just think about your shoulder blades, let them fall. So that's a good one. Then of course there's deep breathing. And I start with the shoulder blades because I think that in order to get a good deep breath, you have to have those shoulder blades relaxed. Because if your shoulder's up here and you're trying to breathe, you're going to just be breathing into like your upper chest and your neck rather than deeper in your belly. So you have to let these relax so that your chest can open and your belly can open and you can breathe deeply. There are a lot of different methods to deep breathing. Kind of the old standby is just belly breathing. If you think about, a deep abdominal breath, kind of like you're breathing into your belly so that you kind of puff out your belly like Santa Claus. That's one way you can do it. My preferred way is, we call it 360 breathing. So you're breathing into your core, and your core is not just the front of your belly, like where your abs are. Your core is, yes, the front of your belly. It's also your back, and it's also the side, so like under where your rib cage is. So once your body's relaxed, you can think about breathing in so that you're kind of blowing air into all four quadrants of your core. So the front, the sides, and the back. This takes practice. It's not easy to do. And the more you kind of stretch your body and get more movement through your core and your torso, the easier it will be too, because we have a lot of muscle tension that's going to prevent us from really expanding with breath. So it definitely, deep breathing really does go hand in hand with stretching. You kind of need both. But that's just one thing that you could start to practice with. Again, it's called 360 breathing. So you're breathing in, and the time frames you can vary. Some people say like breathe in for 3 seconds and exhale for 6 seconds. You're doubling the time you exhale. You can just keep it simple and breathe in for 4 and breathe out for 4. You can kind of play around with what works for you, or what you're used to. But trying to incorporate breathing into all 4 quadrants of the core can really be a game changer for people. So we went over shoulder blades, deep breathing, and now for just like a quick posture check. When we think about like just taking a quick moment to kind of reset your posture, I like to think about 3 things. So first, like I said, the first step is going to be the shoulder blades. So ideally you would be standing when you do this. You can stand, but I'm going to sit just because you can see me. You would stand. You're going to go through your shoulder blade thing, right? So you're going to relax those shoulder blades. And then what you're going to do is think about your feet. So we all know Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, and she clicks her heels together, right? So if you're standing, you can go ahead and click your heels, but you're not actually going to click your heels for this. But you're going to use the muscles that you would if you were clicking your heels. So your feet are flat on the ground. You're not going to move them. But basically, if the back of the heel of my hand is the heel of my foot, you're going to think about moving them this way. And so when you do that, when you contract those muscles in that way, again, you're not actually moving your feet, but you're using the muscles as if you were going to do that. And you'll feel this tightness, like this engagement up your calves, up your hamstrings, so the back of your thighs, into your butt muscles, your glute muscles, and even into your low back. So when you do that kind of clicking your heels together thing, you're going to feel those muscles engage, which makes you just really strong and helps really engage your core and helps lengthen your spine when you do it too. So it's doing a lot of things. So we did the shoulder blades, do the click your heels together, and then the last piece is going to be the top of your head. So by clicking your heels together, like I said, you're already starting to lengthen and elongate your spine. Now you want to take it further from your neck. So you want to think about as if there were a string or a pole or a bright light, like whatever is good for you to visualize, something coming from we call it the crown of your head. So something from the crown of your head pulling up to the ceiling. So you want to, end your posture check with just feeling really tall through your upper back and your neck and the top of your head, as if you're being pulled to the ceiling. So that's just like a quick, 3-step like posture reset check. So shoulder blades, the heels together, and then the crown of your head being tall. So those are some things you can do to help with your day-to-day stress, which you probably have stress every day. So you could make at least some of these things just a daily habit, whether it's first thing in the morning, roll out of bed and just like start your posture off right, or obviously really important to take breaks from the computer during the day. So at your lunch break, or even more regularly if you can, to kind of take a break and go through some of these things, you can do that. But definitely before bed is an awesome time to do some stretching. So we're going to go over some stretches now. But before bed is an awesome time to stretch, because not only are you loosening up your tight muscles that you've acquired throughout the day, but it really helps calm your body. And most people will say that they get a much better night's sleep if they stretch even just a little bit before bed. So that being said, I'm going to do this screen share and bring up some stretches. Okay, so there's like 13 stretches here, but they're not going to take too long, so we'll go over them quickly. So this first one is for your neck, so it's great for posture. And we call the neck the cervical spine, so that's why you'll see this as a cervical chin tuck with overpressure. So basically what you're going to do, and feel free to take like screenshots of these too, so you can save them and print them or just keep them on your phone. So you're going to put your hand on your chin and just slowly draw your head back into a chin tuck so that your ears line up with your shoulders. You're going to hold this. So you can kind of see it as like a strengthening exercise more than a stretch. So you're going to do repetitions of it. So you're going to push your head back, and then you're going to relax to neutral, and then do another repetition. So you can hold it for a couple seconds and then relax. So you can go through these maybe like, 5 to 8 times in a row. So this is great for obviously our awful tech neck posture. Or if you've been spending a lot of time at the computer, or you just feel like you're looking down way too much, this is a great exercise to help strengthen the neck muscles, but also stretch them at the same time. So a really good one to do. This is your upper trap stretch. So those muscles that we talked about that probably have all those crazy knots in here, those are the muscles that we're stretching with this one. So just like she's doing in the picture, you're going to bring one arm behind your back, and the point of this is to drop that shoulder blade. So just like we talked about before, you want to lower that shoulder blade so it's not really up high. And then you're just going to stretch in the opposite direction. You might hear some cracking through your neck, and that's okay. It's just pressure being released from inside the joints, and then you can switch and do the other side. This one is called the serratus wall slide. The serratus muscles are kind of like below the armpits, so along the ribs. And what you're going to do for this is just like he's doing. So your forearms are going to go on a wall. It says to protract your shoulder blades, and the protraction is bring the shoulders forward. So you're actually kind of like pushing away from the wall. And then you're just going to slide your arms up and down. So this is really good mobility because our shoulder blades get so tight and we hold so much muscle tension. This is a really good exercise to help with some mobility. So kind of help sort of unstick, if you will, those shoulder blades because they do get pretty sticky. So this is a great mobility exercise for that. This one is the lat doorway stretch. So the latissimus dorsi is a big muscle in the back. So this is a really good stretch to kind of get the whole length of that muscle. So you'll just stand in a doorway like he's doing, hold on with one arm, and you're just gonna lean back and you'll feel that stretch really all the way from your shoulder, all the way to your low back. And then you can switch and do the other side. This one, now we're moving into the thoracic spine. So the thoracic spine is more the mid back. So just like he's doing here, you're gonna start in a crawl position, get a little bit lower. So kind of sit on your heels if you can. You'll put one hand on the back of your head, and you're just going to kind of point your elbow into the sky as much as you can and just have your body follow that. So it's going to help get some good range of motion in your thoracic spine. This one also similar, you're getting some range of motion through the thoracic spine, but you're also opening some of those chest muscles, which can get really tight. So this one you'll start by lying on your side with your arms together. And then you're going to just slowly and gradually open. So your hips will stay in that stacked position. So you're not ending up lying on your back. You're going to stay on your side, but just your mid back is going to open up and those arms are going to separate. This one is rotational quadratus stretch. So this is for a muscle called the quadratus lumborum. Also one of those muscles that gets really tight, but we don't necessarily feel it in that muscle itself. It kind of just ends up being like really diffuse low back pain. So this is a really good one to stretch because you're going to target some of those core muscles that are sort of culprits for low back pain. So you'll start by lying on your back. And what he's doing, so you have one ankle on your knee and you're going to use that ankle kind of as leverage to pull that knee down to the ground. So you're not doing much with that top leg besides it being like just a lever for you, so that you don't have to like use your arms to kind of pull your legs over. You can just stay relaxed. So your leg is actually doing the work for you. So it's a really great passive stretch. It's a good one to do, and obviously then switch and do the other side. This one is called the piriformis stretch. So the piriformis muscle is a muscle that's kind of deep in your glute muscles in the butt. So you're going to lie on your back. One ankle is going to go on top of one knee, and you're just going to kind of reach through that hole that your leg is making, and you're going to pull that that leg towards your chest. So it's going to help stretch those muscles and into the low back as well. This one is for your hip flexor. So like we talked about, the hip flexors are one of those deep emotional muscles. So this is a good one to do. You'll just kneel on one leg and you're kind of just going to lean forward, not to really overstretch it, just gently lean forward. So you're feeling that bit of a stretch through the leg that's down. So when you're doing this, the leg that you're stretching is the one that is has the knee down. Okay, and then you'll stretch and do the other side. And when you stretch, it's totally normal to feel, because you'll do all of these on both sides, on the left and the right when you stretch, totally normal to feel like one side is way harder to stretch than the other. Obviously, the goal is to get them to be more balanced, but definitely, don't be alarmed if you can stretch pretty easily into the right side and not at all on the left. This one is called Spider-Man. This is one of my favorites. It's one that you can kind of ease into if you're new to stretching. Go easy with this one. But if you're familiar with stretching, go ahead and make it a daily one. It's really great for your hip flexors and everywhere around the hips. So you're basically just going to lunge bring one leg up to your hands, just really as far as you comfortably can. And you can hold it there and continue to breathe and feel that stretch. And then you can make your way and stretch into the other side too. This one, your basic hamstring stretch. You can stretch your hamstring sitting, standing. You can put a leg on a chair to stretch. Really, they all work. So whatever is most comfortable for you, but hamstring stretching is really important. And then, so that's kind of it for all this stretching. And then just kind of wanted to go over a couple of things with a foam roller. I have kind of this love-hate relationship with foam rollers. They're great, in my opinion, for rolling like he's doing here in this picture on those glute muscles, down the hamstrings, which is on the next slide, down the calves, you can use it. So really great anywhere along the legs. I don't love it for along the spine though. Some people will do it and some people say it feels really good, but I've just had way too many people come in and they actually injure themselves by using the foam roller along the spine, because sometimes it can really irritate the ribs. So I just say avoid the foam roller if you can. What you can do as an alternative to get some movement in along the spine without using a foam roller is use a ball. So you know those big stability balls that you would like take into the office with you to sit on as like a chair. So use one of those balls, and you don't even need to roll on, like to actively roll it on it, but just to lie on it. So kind of just like create a bridge over it. So your mid back is extending over the ball. You can open up your arms. You're really stretching through your chest muscles. Just let your head, the back of your head fall on the ball, and just breathe, like just lay there and breathe. And that can really open things up for the spine and your chest as well. So that would be my recommendation for rolling instead of using like a harder foam roller. This picture here is for the piriformis muscle, and then this one is showing for the hamstrings, which basically you're just going to put the foam roller under the back of your thighs and just roll up and down. So the point of the foam roller is really to get as much of your weight on that roller as you can. So a little bit of active work is needed when you do some foam rolling, because you're going to want to kind of use your arms to lift you on top of that foam roller, so you have some weight pushing into the foam roller onto your muscles. So that is what I had here for some stretches. So we're back to the screen, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. There are lots of other things, you know, there's so many tools these days that you can use for at-home self-care. You know, good old heat is never a bad idea, especially like at the end of a long day. You know, if you have either an electric heating pad or just one that you can throw in the microwave, that's always really good. You can use, especially for these tight areas here, really anywhere you need it. Ice is good too. I hate being cold, so ice is not my favorite personally, but I do recommend it for people. But whatever kind of you prefer, you can't, unless you're like have a blown up ankle from like an ankle sprain, you definitely want to use ice and not heat. But other than that, it's kind of whichever works best for you. There are those massage guns too that are everywhere now. I have one here at the office that I use on patients, and definitely bring it home with me and use it almost nightly. So those are really great to do too. There's another thing called a Theracane. I don't have one here to show you, but it's another really great tool that you can, it's my favorite way for getting at these knots at the top of the shoulder blades. It's a Theracane, so Theracane. I can tell. So you can use those. They sell them on Amazon. Sometimes you can find them at Marshall's too. So really, just a really great tool to have on hand. And you're basically just using that cane as leverage to kind of dig into those muscles and get out some knots. So lots of tools out there. Of course, like none of that stuff will work unless you use it, right? So if it's just home collecting dust, don't spend a fortune on these things if you're not going to use them, because they can get kind of pricey, especially some of those nicer massage guns. but they can really be helpful, and you can save yourself in a pinch. If it's like a weekend and your chiropractor isn't in, or if you just don't want to leave the house or something, it's great to have things that you can do on your own at home, and to have the knowledge to do it too. So some good things you can use there. So those are kind of my tips as far as stretching and posture. Question here: what is your opinion about using massage gun to alleviate pain? Yeah, I love it. I love them. Depending on where your pain is, if it's like upper back or somewhere along the back, it's hard to get on your own. So if you can have someone that you live with do it for you, it's awesome. The great thing about those massage guns is that the speed is incredible. So you're getting so many impulses per second with those guns that you don't even have to use them for very long. A little bit of time, like a minute or two, is plenty. So you can do that. And then, you can certainly use it on yourself. Like if you've got some tightness in your forearms, you can use that gun on yourself. Along the legs you can do. Love them, love those massage guns. Kind of just to wrap up then, I'll kind of segue into chiropractic, because I don't know how many of you watching have been to a chiropractor or are currently under chiropractic care, but insurance companies have kind of narrowed us into this like low back pain, neck pain, headaches, car accidents, workers' comp. Like that's what a lot of people think that we do. And it's a big part of what we do because it helps, but it can help with a whole lot more than that. The chiropractic actually got started as a profession way back when, because it restored a man's hearing. So that was the first adjustment. It brought a deaf man his hearing back. Really cool. And back in the 1800s, before insurance companies kind of narrowed us in on this low back pain thing, there were so many like miracle stories that people were experiencing and hearing, because we were kind of chiropractors were free to just like adjust anyone with any condition, and limitless. Like we weren't restricted to like 6 visits a year with insurance companies, so you could do a whole lot with chiropractic. To kind of really narrow it down, when we explain chiropractic, it can get kind of muddled and it can get sciencey and kind of complicated when you start digging into kind of the science behind it. But really, the way it works is so simple. Our bodies are constantly in this never ending, like never ends as long as you live, this never ending state of injury and healing. So we are always injuring ourselves, and it doesn't matter what you're doing. It could be like we're here on a Zoom call. So you're sitting staring at a computer screen, right? And you've probably been at the computer all day long. So injury. Maybe you went to the gym and you exercised. Exercise is great for you, but you're injuring yourself. Even if you do things perfectly, the point of exercise is to have these micro traumas in your muscles. So you're injuring yourself there. You're probably going to go home and maybe you'll lounge on the couch and watch some TV. Injury, because you're probably not in perfect posture when you're on the couch. Even lying in bed, right? You're tossing and turning, or your pillow's not great, or whatever. The dog's taking up too much space. Injury. We're always injuring ourselves. But fortunately, we have these awesome bodies that are always constantly healing too. So just like how we started this conversation with, we have our our fight or flight like on overdrive, and our rest and digest down here. And the purpose of chiropractic is to help kind of balance and maybe even get rest and digest higher than fight or flight. The point is the same with what we're trying to do with the body for injury and healing too. So our injury tends to be up here and healing is down here. And when we do adjustments, we're helping to bring the body into a balance and hopefully overdrive that healing. So that now is dominating the injury. And that we do, of course, with all the stuff that we've already talked about. So, recommendations, exercises, changing your pillow and taking breaks at work and meditating, all these like different self-care things you can do. So all the recommendations we make on that, but also the active part of the adjustment itself is so powerful, because we're not only moving joints, right? We're getting better mobility in joints, which our body needs movement, and we tend to not move a whole lot. So to do an adjustment and get every joint moving through its proper range of motion can be so powerful for the body. But when you do adjustments, you are releasing those feel-good hormones. So that's part of the reason why it's like instant relief for a lot of people, because it like releases all this stuff. So that's great. It's also a huge boost to your immune system. And that's actually kind of a good segue for pediatrics. A lot of, as Jen said, I do specialize in pregnancy care and pediatrics. And pediatrics, yes, as young as a newborn, all the way to, like teenage years. Because I do work with a lot of pregnant women, most of them will just bring their babies in, whether they, feel there's a condition or something that they want checked out. A lot of times it's just like, why not? Like, just start this baby out with a great spine. Because a lot can happen, not only in the womb, but also in the birth process itself. So the sooner you can detect things in the spine, really the better. So the youngest I've adjusted is a 3-day-old, but I know lots of chiropractors who actually go to the hospital and will adjust the baby as soon as they come out. And in some cases, if there's like failure to thrive or breathing issues, it can be life-saving. So there's a lot of cool stories out there. And there's a lot that chiropractic can do. With this pandemic that we're in, not only am I seeing just all the usual types of things, just like the repetitive strain, back pain, at the computer too much, headaches, things like that. But there are some common things that have really upped in prevalence with the pandemic. TMJ, which is the jaw. So a lot of jaw problems. This is probably another area that I should have included in my emotional stress muscles, is the jaw, because when we're stressed, we may not even notice it, but most likely you're clenching pretty hard. So clenching throughout the day, clenching at night, maybe even grinding your teeth at night. We've seen so much TMJ in these last couple of years. And that is definitely something that chiropractic can help with. Of course, the increase in just this tension up here, more headaches because of that too, with COVID. Like I said, low back pain is still as prevalent as ever. And then with pediatric related care, because like the theme of this whole evening has been is that fight or flight and rest and digest balance. So I work with a lot of kids with ADHD or really anywhere along the autism spectrum, because fight or flight tends to be even higher in those kiddos and adults. So helping to balance their nervous systems through their spine can really make a big impact. Ear infections also are really, really popular for pediatric chiropractic. I can't tell you how many parents I have come in with their kids, and they've been under rounds and rounds of antibiotics, and they get one ear infection under control and then it comes right back. And now the doctors want to do tubes, and so they kind of just try chiropractic as their last resort, and fortunately it works. So obviously there's it would be a topic for a different discussion on how it works. but just structurally, but also, like I said before, adjustments are really helpful for the immune system too. So there's lots of different ways that it works, but it's definitely a big one for pediatrics is ear infections. And then sleep changes and behavioral changes too. Again, really simple. It comes down to the nervous system, just bringing out that rest and digest. If we can really slow down that fight or flight, it's amazing what the body can do, not just for pediatrics, but everyone. So that was really the topic of this night. And I hope it helps shed some light, and maybe you learn something that helps you make a little bit more sense of like why you're feeling what you're feeling, or some tips that you can use to help mitigate all this crazy stress. So that's what I had prepared for tonight. Again, if there's any questions or any other input that Doc that you wanna give.
I thought you did a great job, Dr. Denaro. I just thought of something, your process where you said we have rest and digest and fight and flight. And when people get stressed, people eat a lot. I wonder if that's the body trying to say, hey, eat all this food so you can rest and digest and you won't be stressed. But I'd probably recommend seeing you rather than eating like a quart of ice cream or something.
Yeah, or maybe, I mean, that's a good point, right? Maybe the body is realizing that it's lacking nutrients. But unfortunately, what we have in our kitchens tends to be like crackers and ice cream and stuff, and so we're eating. But really, what the body is saying is, I need vitamins and I need like fruit and vegetables, and it's trying to get those, but we just need to stock our kitchens with them.
I had a quick question. I don't know what you know about this, but I remember when I went through physical therapy, they used electrodes to contract the muscles. Do you know anything about how that works, or do you guys use that?
Yeah, a lot of chiropractors will use it in their office. I don't. I tend to, like I said, I have the massage gun here. I'll use that. That's pretty much the extent of like outside of my hands that I use. I like to be more hands-on with patients. But yes, the electrodes do work. It's electrical stimulation. Sometimes they just call it e-stim. And basically it's sort of mimicking exercise. So you're actually helping to fatigue muscles, kind of like as if you were exercising to fatigue. So it can be really helpful in pain management, or healing, muscular sprain type injuries. And another reason why I don't use it in the office is because you can get them for so cheap and use them at home. They have like little portable ones. You can just keep it in your pocket and walk around with it. And so you can use it, wherever, if the shoulder injury, your low back, or your knee. So you can get them maybe like $30 for okay one on Amazon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I have one quick question, kind of a not real personal, but kind of personal. You're probably not immune to all the stress from COVID. And we were talking earlier about how you've been swamped and everything like that. As a chiropractor, what do you do like for your stress? Like, do you go to the chiropractors, or do you just take the gun on yourself?
Yeah, I do a lot. I got adjusted today. I went to my chiropractor today. So I do get adjusted, preferably, I feel best if I can go once a week. Every other week is okay. If I go longer than 2 weeks, I can definitely start to feel it. So yes, chiropractic is huge for me. I always joke with my patients, I could open up a physical therapy clinic with everything I have at my house. I have like every self-care tool imaginable, and I actually do use them. So pretty much nightly, almost nightly. We'll definitely, stretch and use all the different tools for maybe a good 30 to 40 minutes. And, my job is just as repetitive as anyone else's. There's no occupation that doesn't have occupational hazards. Doesn't matter what you do. If you do the same thing day in and day out, it's going to be an injury. And I fall into that as well. So yeah, doing all the self-care stuff is vital for me.
Does that about wrap it up, I think, maybe for our questions? Anything else you can think of, Doc V?
No, that was pretty informative. I found myself doing those little things while you were talking about them. Like,
Good.
man, I'm super tense.
Well, you work hard.
Thank
I bet graded all the papers and everything. Definitely.
Oh yeah,
all that.
busy
all
time,
that
busy time.
I know, we just got through mid-year, so, you know, lots of stress there. All right. Well, thank you so much, Abby and Doc V, for being with us tonight. I so appreciate it. And I know our audience did as well. So this program will be available on our website, along with all of our other Austin Prep Presents programs in the next couple of days. And so you can go to austinprep.org/alumni/Austin-prep-presents. And that's where you'll find this program probably in the next 48 hours or so. So thank you again. And I hope others will join us again in our future webinars. Our next webinar, I believe, will be at the beginning of February. So we'll look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you again, Abby. Thanks, Doc V.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.